It's time for the Bronco Nation News Report with four-time NSMA Idaho Sports Writer of the Year, BJ Rains.
Oh, I love saying this. It's a Friday. Many of you are on I-84 in your rig. You're getting ready for a weekend, and just be of mind, it is the last weekend of the Boise State football offseason. That's why we're doing our special BNN report at a different time. We welcome BJ on our Double Tap Pub hotline. You can also watch this currently on our YouTube channel, both BNN and KTIK here in the RowPaint.com studio. It is Boise State football talk on a Friday, Prater, and the offseason. See ya. It's going to be gone in a couple minutes.
Let's do it.
I love it. BJ, you with us, man? Welcome to the show, and can't wait to preview Boise State fall camp. What's going on, man?
Yeah, the last Friday for 5 months, I guess, or maybe 8 months if you throw in basketball season too. They won't have real practice or games to talk about for a while. So excited to be on with you guys. And it was a long summer, but we made it. We're here.
I read something today that said, and I didn't confirm it like a good reporter, but last night was the last Thursday without football until 2025.
Saw that. Get the NFL's at the Hall of Fame game next Thursday, I guess, to kick it off. And then there's preseason football and college, and
last night was the last Thursday until it's like Johnny Ballgame special.
I'm happy. I love hearing that, Prater. Yeah. I can't wait, BJ. And I'll tell you this, Spencer Danielson, if you're listening, you want to get this season off to a good start, you should have me running that first hype circle in practice number 1. But obviously, BJ, that's not going to be the case, but we're all going to see it. BJ, when they break that first hype circle, I don't even know who they'll choose to do it. But when they do that and they break off into their position groups, BJ Rains, where are you going to be headed?
See, I thought that was the first question. Who's going to lead the first hype circle of the season? That's a good debate, I think, in terms of team captains and stuff. But, I mean, everyone's going to say quarterback. The obvious answer is you're going to look at the quarterbacks. But, I'll go to a couple other spots first. I'm going to be very intrigued by the wide receiver group. Chris Marshall, Cam Camper. How do those guys look? Cam Camper, we didn't see it all during the spring. How did Chris Marshall project and continue to improve over the summer? What's the depth chart look like at wide receiver? I'm extremely interested to see how the two newcomers look there, Camper and Chris Marshall. I think if you go to offensive tackle, Hall Schmidt, is he going to be at right tackle like we all think, or is it Kyle Cox? Is it somebody else? I'm going to go take a gander at right tackle. I think the cornerback position, is it Irby? Is it McCoy as the starters like we expect? How does David Banks look, the Washington transfer? Markel Reed, how does he fit in? Some of the other young guys that looked good in the spring, Franklin Johnson or Deontay Thornton or Kai Taylor, are they ready to contribute if needed? And, safety as well. There's a log jam of 4 or 5 guys there that all think they should be starting and want to play. So what the depth chart looks like, where a guy like Ty Benefield's being used at safety, I think is exciting. And you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go look at Ashton Genty, and I'm going to look at the guys behind him as well. Dubar, Gaines, and even Dylan Riley, the incoming freshman that we didn't get to see in the spring. I'm excited to look at him and just continue to go down the depth chart. But I think you could pick every position and find someone to look at. But individual drills, I'll go to some of the other spots. Once the team drills start, that's when I'll take my looks at the quarterbacks.
All right, BJ, that was kind of the position group. I want you to focus on a player, maybe someone you just mentioned, but outside of the quarterbacks, is there that guy, that first practice that you're going to say, you know what, I need to make sure I have a pretty solid opinion on this guy. I want to spend some time seeing what type of practice he has. BJ, who's that one Boise State player for you right now?
Well, I think it's either Chris Marshall or Cam Camper for me. I'm going 2. I think both those guys come in with huge expectations. I know you feel good about Strawn and Bolt and Caples, and those 3 guys, by themselves would be, perfectly good guys. But I think an X factor or X factors on this team could be Cam Camper and Chris Marshall. Cam Camper coming over with 50 catches or whatever at Indiana at the Big Ten, touchdowns in the Big Ten, and Chris Marshall, again, a guy that has had trouble staying on rosters and staying on the field and hasn't done a whole lot in college, but has the potential and the 5 stars and could be a game-changing type wide receiver for this team if he can get it together and be productive. So I'm going Camper and Marshall, and then if I could pick 2 other guys at one position, I think the defensive backs. I think Banks coming in from Washington, does he push for a starting spot? Where does he fit in with Irby And I know we all feel really good about Amari and McCoy being one of those starters, but is there any scenario where the two transfers come in and take a guy like that spot away? I think what Banks looks like, since we didn't see him in the spring, really changes the potential depth of the cornerback position. So I think Devin Banks and then those receivers probably is where I'm looking at to start.
Yeah, the season hasn't even started. And BJ, we're both on the same page. I'm all about the wide receiver room. I'm all about those two guys. I'm going to focus hard on those guys on Monday or Wednesday, because some of those other positions we've had a chance to see. Yeah, they're going to evolve and develop, and there'll be storylines as well. But I cannot wait to watch the wide receivers on Wednesday. My question to you is along the same lines as Johnny's questions. Which coach are you going to look at first?
I think you could look at every position, but to be honest with you, in terms of some of the new coaches, I really want to see a guy like Stacy Collins again and what he's doing out there with the linebacker group and the specialists. We've heard so much about what he's doing, and I think the special teams portion of practices, I know, aren't the most exciting portions of practice, but we're hearing a lot about starters wanting to be out there again on special teams. Well, what kind of starters are out there on special teams, and what does some of that look like, and some of the drills and things, and some of the schemes they're going to have in terms of returning more punts and returning more kicks. I'm going to look at Stacy Collins and his impact. And then I think the other new coach as well, Tyler Stockton. We just talked about the corners and the safeties. Obviously, that pass defense has to get better. Obviously, the back seven, could certainly be better than it was last year at times. And, I think Tyler Stockton being the co-defensive coordinator, the, pass defense guy, so to speak, in terms of that job, being the safeties coach, what does he do with that group, and how does that group look? And I guess with the same question is throw in the corners and throw in a coach that, some folks, maybe even of the three of us, have talked about and questioned his job status in terms of the cornerbacks coach and what happens there. And obviously they took the special teams away from him, but I think that certainly at corners, that's a position that needs to be better this year. We think it's going to be, but I want to watch the corners and the coaching there and see what it looks like.
BJ Rains, Bronco Nation News Report. This is a special edition camp preview. We do this segment every Friday right here on Idaho Sports Talk. We're going to get to Jeremiah Dickey here in a minute and his process or ongoing process or no process or whatever the hell's going on between Jeremiah Dickey and the Houston AD vacancy. But I did want to ask you about the big star on this football team, and Ashton Jeanty. And we were all in the room together in Vegas when he told us he wanted to run for 2,000 yards. Prater did some math. Ashton Jeanty's never carried more than 220 times per season. If he carries 250 times this year, in addition to all his pass catching duties, he has to average 8 yards a carry. His career, he's at 5.8. If you obviously 300 carries, 6.7 yards. The math is brutal. End of the day, does Ashton Jeanty really have a chance to rush for 2,000 yards?
I think he certainly has a chance to pass Jay Ajayi as the single season record holder. I think it's 1823 is the number there. Yeah, I think that's a number that we should start with. And if he gets to that, maybe he puts himself in position for 2,000. I mean, he did miss 2 full games last year, and he missed almost a third full game. He only played a quarter, I believe, before he got hurt. So he almost missed 3 full games, and he still rushed for well over 1,300 yards. So I know you're looking at the carries and the per carry, but I'm looking at the game. It's 100. If he plays all 14 games, 143 yards rushing per game he would have to have. And so is it doable? Yes. Am I going to come on and say it's likely? I think that'd be foolish to say, but Ashton Jeanty has surprised us plenty already. And I think obviously health is going to play a big portion of that. I know some people say, if they get up big in the fourth quarter, is he going to get the action still? Johnny brought up this morning, on our show, hey, what about his ability to catch balls out of the backfield? If he has 50 catches, is that going to take away 50 rushing opportunities he could have? So maybe we should be looking more at the all-purpose yard number, but which, by the way, I looked it up, 2,000 all-purpose yards. It's only happened 97 times in college football history, which seems like a high number, but really when you think of all of college football history, 97 is not that much. I think we all think 2,000 all-purpose yards is almost a lock probably if he stays healthy. From the rushing perspective, though, I'm going to say let's make the initial target Jay Ajayi, the school record, 1823. I think he has a great chance at that if he can stay healthy and play all 14 games. I wouldn't put 2,000 out of the picture, but I wouldn't say it's likely either.
All right, well, we'll focus on that more down the road, and this is more of a camp preview. So I guess my follow-up there is, in the spring, Ashton Jeanty was more of a cheerleader. I mean, he a little bit here, a little bit there, and rightfully so. How much do you think he's going to be active? How much tackling, how much action, how much live practices, how many live reps? How active will Ashton Jeanty be this fall?
Oh, I think he's going to get tackled this fall the same amount of times that you get tackled, Mike Prater, which I guess depending on a column could be, more than zero.
Once or twice, yeah.
But I think there'd be no reason for him to really need to have any kind of contact. I think you put him in bubble wrap and get him ready for that first game against Georgia Southern. So he'll certainly do the individual drills. They'll get his work in the scrimmages and stuff. But I do not expect him to get much of a workload at all. I mentioned you have Breezy Dubar, you have Sire Gaines, and they're really high on Dylan Riley too, an incoming freshman. So I think they have at least 3 running backs that they feel very good about and want to give a lot of work to this fall camp. And Ashton Genty certainly is going to get his work in and be ready. It's not like they're just going to leave him on the sidelines all fall camp. He needs to get work in. He needs to keep improving, and ball security certainly is something they want to work on with him and stuff, and taking care of the ball. But in terms of the physical hits and the extra power and things like that go against them and all the hits, I don't think you're going to see much of that at all. The whole season relies on Ashton Genty staying healthy, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure that happens during fall camp.
Our Boise State fall camp preview special edition of our Bronco Nation News Report. BJ Rains on our Double Tap Pub hotline, Prater on the Ball Game, Idaho Sports Talk. BJ, give me a player that you are going to be right on. You've said, hey, watch out for this player, or hey, I like this situation, hey, all this. And at the end of the year, you're going to be saying, hey, I was right on that guy. There were some questions going into the season. He hadn't done much yet, but I called it. I called it on him. Do you have those candidates yet?
Well, I mean, there's 85 players on scholarship, so I can just start listing off 85 guys. I mean, I'm always right on that. Come on, John.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think there's a lot of guys that you could go down the line and look at and go to the different positions. I mean, I think the quarterback battle is one that we always talk about, but I really believe in terms of Hall Schmidt at right tackle. I mean, he's a guy that I think is ready to step up. And from what we saw in spring and what we talking to people about, I'm ready to say that I think he has a chance. But I'm going to go to the other side in terms of a guy like Cage Casey, who last year started every game. I think Cage Casey is like starting to put himself in the national conversation here. As a sophomore, you already saw him be first team all left tackle for the preseason in the Mountain West. Like, if Cage Casey starts every game and has a really solid season, like, he's going to go into the following season as a guy that's probably on some draft boards at left tackle and could move his way up because of his size and what he can do. Again, I think you could pick every position in terms of some of the linebackers, some of the defensive linemen, safeties, but in terms of, I think Cage Casey has a chance with a solid season to really become I don't want to say a household name, but in terms of like NFL draft gurus and guys that do all that kind of stuff, I think he could really help himself out when it comes to that. But the backup running backs for me as well. We're talking about Ashton Genty. That's obviously a huge storyline. How many carries does he get? How much workload, how many carries he gets is also going to rely on the productivity of the guys behind him. And from what we saw from Sire Gaines in spring, I mean, I don't think it's a lock that Breezy Dubar is number 2 in rushing when the season ends. I think they really like Gaines, and I think that's going to be a very interesting battle for me, is how the carries end up getting divided. And I know early on they'll give him to Breezy. He probably deserves it, but I think Gaines is going to continue to push and impress, and I think that the running back spot behind him is a spot that I'm looking at, and I really like Breezy Dubar, and I know he's not going to come close to doing what Ashton Genty can do, but I think Dubar and Gaines, whether it's this year at some point, whether it's 2025, those both seem like special guys that, again, not going out on a limb and saying those guys are going to be special players, but I think those are guys that could end up having really good seasons and really good careers here.
Wednesday, sometime around 10:15-ish, I'm going to guess, unless Spencer kind of moves their schedule around. They're going to break that hype circle. The individual drills are going to be done, and everybody breaks off into their position groups. Ball Game talked about that as opening of camp. When they get into the quarterbacks, who's going to be the number 1 rep guy right off the bat?
Oh, it's going to be Maddox Madsen. I don't think that's – I think Spencer even may have told you guys that, told us that. I mean, I think that to start with, and especially in the individual drills, like, you're going to go with the veteran guy. You're going to go with the guy that's, obviously been there, knows the offense. And I mean, they're not going to give this obviously to anybody, but I don't think they want to have Malachi be the guy that starts as number 1 going into fall camp. I think that's going to be Maddox Madsen. He'll be first in a lot of these drills. And then they'll kind of go from there. And I mean, maybe it's like, who's number 2? Is Malachi Nelson right away second in these drills, or is a guy like Colt Fulton or somebody else that's been there a while step up and at least, in the individual drills be the next guy to go? The pecking order, I think, obviously will shake out. Nelson, Madsen will be, at the top. And then you have, Fulton, I think Caleb Annette, the incoming freshman, I know they're excited about. But it's going to be Maddox Madsen as QB 1A to start with. He's going to get, I think, the chance, starting with the team reps and things, to run the number one offense. And then we'll just see how quickly a guy like Malachi Nelson continued to pick things up over the summer, where he's at going into camp, and how quickly he can start to earn, more of those number one reps moving forward. But I know we've talked about it for however many months, that is the number one storyline. That is the number one thing that everyone's going to be watching all camp. Who ends up being the starting quarterback? It's Boise State football, starting quarterback. And it's not we've had years where I've given you guys crap because we've manufactured a controversy when there really wasn't one there, or who should be the starter and stuff like that. Like, this is a legit 50.1, 49.9. Like, it could go either way with both guys. This truly is a real competition here where I don't think anybody has the edge. And literally, whoever you ask, you, me, Jay, whoever, like, everybody has a different answer on this. And I think it's because the coaches don't even know at this point. And both guys, I truly believe, think they have a chance, the chance to win it. And it's as close as I've ever can remember a QB battle being. Because like I said, there's been years where we've said, oh, it's going to be, this guy and Chase Cord and this guy, but it's always been a guy that we just assumed would end up getting it in the end. I don't think you can do that right now. And I think if you had to put a lot of money down, or your home mortgage, whatever, we wouldn't feel super confident picking either guy right now. I think it really could go either way, and I think that's what's going to make it really exciting. But a long answer to a short question, I do think Maddox Madsen gets that first chance.
Okay, BJ, BNN reports special edition fall camp preview. I know you're sending texts. I know you're working hard trying to figure out what's going to happen with Boise State's athletic director, Jeremiah Dickey, and the search for the Houston athletic director position. BJ, what can you tell us on the Jeremiah Dickey watch?
Well, I mean, I guess some people say, I've seen some people say no news is bad news, and I've seen some people say no news is good news, I guess. And you could, whichever side you want it to end up, you could make an argument on that side of it. But I have heard nothing. And again, Prater, I think, is more dialed in on this than me. So I should, defer to him for the details on this. But I've heard nothing, I guess, to change my stance that when it's all said and done, I expect him to remain at Boise State. How that gets done, whether that's him having to take a massive pay cut, whether that's, Boise State stepping up, whether Houston goes in a different direction, I don't ultimately know what the final verdict is. But I have yet to hear anything that would make me change my, I guess, an educated guess that I think when it's all said and done, Jeremiah Dickey is going to stay. I just believe that they're going to find a way to work something out. I haven't been told otherwise. Maybe in 10 minutes we find out he's going to Houston. I don't know. But I think that he wants to be here. I think they're going to find a way to get close enough that for the right, time, right moment, they decide they'll get it done somehow. And I haven't heard otherwise. But again, there has been no news on this that I've seen for a while, which you could take one of two ways.
Yeah, BJ, and I tend to agree. And I've been diving in and digging hard at this. And based on my reporting, I'll just say what I've been saying for the last 2 or 3 weeks. He is absolutely a part of this process. To what degree, I'm not quite sure yet. Houston is still very early on in this process. And, they have the search committee that we know is public, and they're doing their due diligence. They're doing their work. What that means, I'm not sure. There's not a lot of news coming out of Houston and the Houston Chronicle and Joe Duarte, the reporter that we were talking to. So I'm not sure that that's a place where you want to go right now. But I think at the end of the day, you're probably right. But I also don't think that this deal is done based on my reporting, that everybody is kind of still doing their thing. And Jeremiah Dickey to this day continues to 99.9%, actually, I should say 100% of his time is dedicated to being a Bronco, but the process in Houston is not done.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And yeah, I mean, you're at least on social media, he's continuing to push the right message, continuing to solely talk about Boise State and stuff. I do know that Marlene Tromp, the Boise State president, was out of the country for literally like 2 weeks. And so over in Vietnam, I believe, doing some stuff with the business school and trying to do some deals over there. So it wasn't a vacation. It was a work trip for Boise State. But I know that may have slowed the process down a little bit, that she wasn't even in the country for 2 weeks.
And Houston's president was out of the country for 2 weeks as well.
There you go. So that obviously could be the reason it's been a little bit slower at this time on both sides of it. But like I said, I think when it's all said and done, he stays. I think he does want to stay. Obviously, when we find out if that happens and what the deal are, we're really going to find out how much he does bleed blue or want to be here, if he took some sort of massive pay cut when he could have, gotten something bigger elsewhere. But I think that, Marlene Tromp and the administration realizes, I think is, I guess, the word I'll use, Mike, that how valuable he is and that they need him and that just what a buzzkill it would be if he left. But until the deal's done and it hasn't happened already, maybe I'm overstating that a little bit. But obviously, I believe in the end he's going to find a way to stay.
I'm not going to give Marlene Trump and her office that kind of credit. I think they're more reactive than proactive. And at the bottom line, though, you're right. Just get the damn thing done. I don't care if one person's using leverage or one side's using leverage or how this all works out. But the fact that it's still lingering out there, the fact that Marlene Trump is, I don't know. I just don't get a good feeling from that side of campus. But we'll see how this all plays out.
I'll say this quickly, Mike. Like, I know the coaches at one point, like I haven't, we've been face to face with them in the last couple of weeks, not like super recently. Like a lot of the coaches are worried, like he's their boss. They love the direction things are going. Like at one time, like some of the coaches I've talked to were like, we're super worried about the potential of losing him and what that means for other things moving forward. And they've, to my understanding, at least some of them have reached out to Marlene Trump or the president or have done their due diligence as well, trying to say like, I hope you realize like we need this guy here. You cannot let him get away. Now, again, how much they can afford to pay and what that means, that's all a different story. But my understanding is a lot of the coaches have, I don't know what's the right word, politic campaign, or at least let it be known that they really, really appreciate and need Jeremiah Dickey to remain as athletic director. So behind the scenes, a lot's been happening. As you said, both presidents were gone for a couple of weeks. Maybe it starts to pick up here. It's kind of funny to me that they're trying to like finalize the Houston football series. They're hoping by August 1st. I guess I saw Jeremiah told Jay Tuss to have a deal done with Houston and Boise State for football, and I kind of chuckled at that because like, who's he talking? Well, before we talk contract, can we get this game finalized? But that's just kind of a weird side story. But I think we'll find. I don't think it's going to go too much longer. I think in the next 10 days or so, we'll probably get some resolution on this.
BJ, Monday, coaches interviews, Wednesday, practice. Man, what coverage. BNN, KTIK, teammates joining forces to liberate you with our Boise State coverage. BJ, well done as always.
Yeah, going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you guys. And yeah, we had to stretch some of these Friday appearances to get through the summer, but I think we're done at this point. We're going to have a lot to talk about, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And thanks to Spencer Danielson and the access we're getting at practice, we're going to have plenty to see and plenty to talk about.
BJ, you're the best. Prater on the ball game. KTIK, the ticket, 208-424-9300. If you want Jason Mraz tickets for August 3rd at the Fort Idaho Center Amphitheater, you got to call right now and ask us a question about Boise State football in this season. If you do, you might win them today. Prater on the ball game.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.